Hi, my name's Alan Bracken, and I help people achieve the greatness that they were created to fulfill by inspiring them to grow personally so that they can maximize their individual potential and live full lives. Have you ever just felt down deep inside that there was something more for you in life? Maybe that there was something beyond what you were experiencing right now? Maybe you didn't know exactly how to get there or exactly what it looked like, but there was something pulling at you down inside. But because you didn't know how to get there, you just kind of kept doing the same thing you've been doing, maybe hoping, maybe wishing that something was different or something would change. If you can relate to any of this, we've got something in common. That's where I was 12 years ago. Knowing that there was something more in my life that I wanted to achieve, that I wanted to attain, I wanted to accomplish, but unclear, unsure, and uncertain of what it looked like or how I would get there. And in 2002, I was at my grandfather's funeral when the realization hit me that someone is going to say something about me at the end of my life. And the question was, what would they say? I really didn't know what they would say. I had some ideas of what I hoped, some things I hoped they would say, but I really didn't know. I needed to answer that question. And that epiphany really launched me into a personal growth and leadership development that has really transformed who I was into who I am. And although my journey is far from over, I can tell you this. I've experienced a level of fulfillment in my life that I've never experienced before. And it's quite exciting. You know, I never was a person that really aspired to be average or status quo or do what everybody else did. Just wasn't a lot of excitement in that for me. And you know what? I don't think you should settle for average either. The reason they call it average is because that's the majority. That's what most people do. There's nothing great about it. Here's what I know. There's something great inside of you. And if you're like me, you need a little bit of a help uncovering it, discovering what it is. In 2002, at my grandfather's funeral, I realized that I wanted good things to be said about me. That was a funeral that really changed my life. It was a good funeral in the sense of funerals. You know, there's the good ones and there's the bad ones. We've been to both, probably. A lot rather go to the good ones. My grandfather was 83 years old, so he'd lived a good life, left a legacy. His grandchildren got up and talked about the impact he had made in our lives. I was one of them. I can remember talking about what affected me the most about my grandfather, and that was his character and his attitude. He always had a great attitude. He always was upbeat. And that really spoke to me and inspired me to be that way. He had a good sense of humor, was a great storyteller. He fought in World War II. And I can remember my grandmother talking about 1942 they got married. He came home like on the weekend for a short, he didn't have long, a short leave, and they got married. Next week he's gone off to war. My grandmother not to see him for, she didn't know how long, maybe never. And my grandmother told me a story about receiving flowers every Saturday. And the delivery boy telling her, so Miss Bracken, you may as well get used to seeing me, because I have orders from your husband to bring you flowers every week until he returns home from the war. That's the kind of man he was. Inspiring, encouraging, uplifting. And that's what we talked about as his grandkids. We talked about that life. I remember my grandfather telling me about the time he was wounded so severely. It's 1944, Anzio Beach. Shells are coming everywhere. He's getting hit. One's ricocheted off his helmet, hit him right here. Blood squirting out about 4 inches. He said he stuck his thumb in there to plug it up. His leg is literally broken, laying beside him, getting busted all to pieces. And he was laying there literally on the battlefield dying. And he prayed, he said, God, if you help me get out of here, I'll serve you to the best of my ability the rest of my life, and I'll not complain. And that's what I remember about my grandfather. The 30 years I had the privilege of being around him, I never remember hearing him complain. Because he made a choice to stick to that commitment, to follow through, even when it was hard. And I know there were times that he was in pain, and he had both of his knees replaced, and he could have complained a little, but he chose not to, because he was committed to following through on a decision that he had made laying on the battlefield. And that, to me, takes character. And that, I realized, I wanted that quality. And so that day, as we talked about the legacy that he had left, the commitment to God, to his family, and to his country, we were inspired, encouraged. And I think the reason it affected me so much was because less than a week later, my wife Amanda called me and said that the funeral home had just called her and told her that her dad was dead. That he had committed suicide. And as you can imagine, a very different set of circumstances. One extreme to the other. One funeral, we're celebrating a life, and the other, we're trying to celebrate, but it's tough. It was tough because of the choices that my father-in-law had made. You know, he had a lot of regrets in his life, and they just began to mount up on him, and he just couldn't seem to overcome. So he made one final choice to end it all. And it was just a tragedy. And I can remember thinking about those two scenarios and thinking about my own life and thinking, you know what? I've got some choices that I've got to make. Choice number one for me was taking responsibility for where I was and where I wanted to go. Who I was right then into really who I wanted to be, and living a life where people could say good things about me. I had to choose. It was up to me. I had to take responsibility in learning and growing and growing personally. In other words, I had some good intentions, but I had to make the choice to learn and develop those potentials so that those good things would be said. I had to choose some different friends. And the fourth thing I had to choose was this. I had to choose to believe that there was greatness in me. You know, it was easier for me to believe that other people could be great, but I didn't really know that I could, that there was something great about me, inside of me, yet to be discovered. So those are some choices that I had to make as I started down the journey of really living a full life, reaching my potential. And as I got on that journey, I'll tell you this, I made some mistakes. And I know I'm not finished making mistakes, but one of the things I want to caution you is this. Hey, understand that nothing happens overnight. It's a journey, it's a process, it takes time. So be patient. And the other thing, second thing is this. Hey, there is so much information out there, it can be overwhelming. Who do you listen to? Where do you go? What do you get? So take your time. Don't get overwhelmed. One step at a time. And then the last thing's this. Really, really got to know and understand and commit to spending time and finding people that you can surround yourself with that are moving in the direction that you want to go, that have the values that you have, so that you can be who you really want to be. So those are just some tips to help you on the journey. The first thing I recommend you do is really believe that there is greatness inside of you. And then commit to growing personally and uncovering and discovering that greatness. I know that's the journey that I've committed to, and it has certainly led to a very exciting, adventurous, fulfilling life. And here's what I know. If you choose to start this journey, to uncover and discover the greatness inside of you, if you choose to grow personally, you'll be glad you did. Because you'll be living an above average life. And that's exciting, that's rewarding, and very fulfilling.